Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Rising. We are starting season 2 today, but we are pivoting because we are in Los Angeles and our hearts are heavy right now. And we hope to help navigate people through this difficult time with some helpful tips and insight into what is currently going on in the city. So thank you for joining us.
Okay, Janelle, I feel like you're the perfect person to talk to about this because number one, you're from here. You're from LA. You live in LA. You live really close to Altadena. And I'm just really grateful that I get to sit here and process this with you. And I think that a lot of people listening will hopefully also take from that because you've experienced grief and loss before. And I wouldn't say anyone will ever have fully mastered the process of grief, but you have prepared for us today what I know will help us no matter what part of the spectrum you fall on. If you're in Los Angeles, if you're outside of Los Angeles and you have loved ones in the area. So just take us to the beginning of what the heck and how do we deal with it?
It's a very heavy time. I think that we're all feeling the collective energy here in Los Angeles. We are all grieving, but I think we don't know how to grieve. I think a lot of us are not sitting with the grief. I think we're jumping really quickly into action. And that's wonderful. We all want to help our neighbors, and that is what we should be doing. But we also can't neglect ourselves. So we have to put our own oxygen mask on first and see how are we feeling? How is the energy in the home if we have our home, right? What is the energy there? And are we trying to do our best to stay somewhat positive really with what's going on? Because there is a lot of good happening around us. We have come together as a city to really help each other, but everybody is on different, spectrums of this. There are people that are severely impacted. And then there are people they may not have directly been impacted, but they know someone who has. And that still weighs heavily on their heart. And so naturally, you want to help. You want to help.
Take me back to the day the fire started. What was your experience in this? Because I think the context is important for people listening. I've seen so many posts and videos online, people saying this is what you should do to help people that are dealing with fires. And I look at them and they don't even live here. And they're trying to relate to, someone on the spectrum, and they're not even from here. And I get that grief is grief and loss is loss. And if you're an expert in that area, then you might have something great to say. And I don't want to discredit that. But I want you to give context for your experience in these fires before you start serving us help, because I think that I think it helps us understand the advice that you're giving us when we know your experience. So tell me, from the days the fire started, where were you? What happened?
Well, I live near Pasadena, Altadena area, a little bit east, but about 15 minutes. And I live in a high-risk fire zone. So when the fires were happening, we had to really get our act together because we were about to be evacuated. So we had a little bit of time to gather our items. And it is a harsh reality when you're facing the fact that you may potentially lose it all and that you have to leave with, whatever you deem is valuable to you, and not forgetting those important documents and everything. And there's so many emotions that you're processing at the same time. And as a parent, you're trying to stay steady for your children because they're watching you, in panic mode, but you're trying to keep them calm. So it was a very scary time just being in the vicinity that close to the fires. And we quickly started to see that things were escalating very quickly.
How do you operate under pressure?
Oh,
In that moment, were you calm,
I
cool, and collective, or what was your?
I was for the most part pretty calm. As I mentioned, I live in a high-risk fire zone, so I've adopted a different way of life, I guess you could say, or mentality around where I live. I almost view my home as temporary because the reality is, I'm at risk for a lot where I live. So I have to kind of accept the reality that my home may not be there forever. It's not morbid. I think it's just being realistic that, our things are not as valuable our lives are. So we have to just come to that reality. And as I was assessing every room in the house, I was like, well, that doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. What matters is my life and getting my children out and us being safe and our pets and things like that. So you really, when you're under that kind of pressure, you really start to realize what is important. And we just tried to stay as calm as we could for the kids because, they needed us to be pretty steady. And my husband was as well. We were just trying to do our best to, gather our things. But luckily, we were able to stay and we were not impacted.
If you had to guess, how many people do you know lost their home?
Oh my
That
gosh.
you know.
I have chills. I feel like I find out about a new person like every hour. If it's not directly, it's someone that I know whose family member's been impacted. I mean, this is just, we're so connected in this community in the San Gabriel Valley. And I went to high school in Pasadena. There are over 130 families, from students to alumni, that have been completely displaced. So it's sad. It's sad that we know so many people.
It is really sad. Talk about the energy in LA.
The energy is low. It's frantic at the same time. I think people are in a state of shock. They still can't believe the damage and to the degree that, things have been just destroyed. And there's this collective grief we're all feeling. We're all feeling for each other. And it's tough. I mean, people are really suffering in so many ways. Mentally, it's a lot of people can't sleep. They're having anxiety. They can't even function. Who wants to go to work right now? Who wants to send their kids to school? I mean, this is the reality that we're living in. And I think we all need to take a pause. I think we've been expending our energy on trying to help. And that's wonderful. But we also have to come back to ourselves and really take a pause and sit with the grief, because all of us have lost something. If it wasn't your physical home, you've lost like a sense of security and instability in the world, right? We're feeling this like none of us feel so steady and safe anymore because a natural disaster really could happen at any moment. So the next few episodes we're going to focus on for the Rising will be on using my principles in navigating challenging times like this, especially grief. And just again, my principles are reflection, intention, simplicity, and enjoyment. And I really believe that all these principles will help you navigate a really challenging time in your life and will guide you.
What do you think is the most important thing to do if someone's hearing this that's been affected in one way or another?
First and foremost, you cannot process grief without feeling safe. Those who have been displaced right now are just trying to get to a safe place, a friend's house, family member, a hotel. They're just trying to get their bearings under a physical space. The second part is you have to feel safe in your own body. So in order to process grief, you have to have basic safety and then physical safety and then safety in your body. And then you can start to process grief. I don't want people to think that like, oh, I got to sit with the grief now, but I don't have a roof over my head. That's not it at all. You have to have a sense of security. And then, yes, you have to be able to process what happened. You have to be sad. You have to be angry. You have to be in pajamas if you need to be in pajamas. You need to give yourself what you need. And sometimes all you need is to basically just to sit with it and not do anything. And that's the best thing you can do for yourself because you're honoring your needs. At that moment, I can't do much and I have to honor that.
I would imagine, I don't know because I'm not in this position, but I would imagine that anyone who has lost their home or has gone through something, if they are trying to process I'm sure there's a thought of, but at least that didn't happen to me. And I'm better, like almost this, like I lost my home, but at least I have my car. I lost my home, but at least I have my dog. And they're almost trying to, it's like the survivor guilt is overshadowing the process of what they did lose. And I think possibly people need to hear that. Stop weighing what you lost and discounting the importance of it because you didn't lose X, Y, and Z compared to your neighbor. Like whatever it was that you lost, it
Mhm.
matters and it's important. And just because you didn't lose everything you own doesn't mean you're not experiencing real loss, like real pain. Like some people I know, like just part of their home burned down and they got to keep X, Y, and Z. And so they're not allowing themselves to feel the grief of maybe that one room that they
Mm.
lost because they're trying to put on a happy face for the people next door that lost everything. Can you just speak to that a little bit? I don't even really know what I'm trying to ask, but there's this in between person. Cause I
Mhm.
know like I have a lot of friends that were closer to the fires. I live like 4 miles south of Pasadena.
Mhm.
So I knew there's a lot of city block in between me and the fires. There's no way the city would, like, everything would have gone into not letting those hospitals burn down and everything in between us. I was never really concerned for my safety.
Mm.
But friends that I have that were closer to the fire, that were in the direct line of it, are really struggling with survivor's guilt that when their house didn't burn down. There's an in between though. There's an in between the person who lost everything and the person who didn't lose anything but just feels bad about it. That
Mhm.
in that middle spectrum, the person who's dealing even with just the energy of the city and like feeling the heaviness or whatever it is, can you just encourage them or speak to them on how do you identify that? Or is it, I mean, what's the process there? I don't know. I don't really know what I'm trying to ask, but like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, this is a national crisis if you think about it. In LA County, we have all been impacted in one way or another. Now, of course, there are varying degrees, right? But I think everyone's grief is valid and that's okay. And yes, there are people that were more severely impacted and there's other people that weren't, but everybody has been impacted. And you have to give yourself loving kindness and go, okay, I may not have lost, this, can I just be grateful? Yes, you can be grateful for the fact that you have your life and that you have this left. And you can always come from that place. And you can always come from a place of service. Like, how can I help in a way that is intentional? And ask people, what do you really need? Like, what is it? Like, you probably don't need more clothes. You probably need more monetary things, right? So it's really being intentional and seeing where you can put your resources. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's a lot of small businesses suffering. So they may not have lost their homes. They're intact, but the city is not in a place right now where people want to spend money on certain services. So those people are struggling, but they feel guilt because they're like, well, I have my home, but now my business is suffering because nobody wants to come in and, use my service because people are in crisis mode right now.
Hmm.
So there's so much suffering right now. There's so much collective suffering. And it doesn't make one suffering, better or like, top tier. It's just that we're all going through something so different and navigating it the best way that we can. And I want to say that all the feelings that everybody's feelings are valid and it's okay. Don't feel guilt. Don't feel like shame. Oh my gosh, I still have my house. I feel so guilty. Like, be thankful you have your home and pray for those that don't and help where you can. Don't expend resources that you don't have. If you don't have the cash right now or the money to help somebody, that's not
Yeah, don't go
what you
into
need to
debt
do.
trying to donate.
Exactly. I've been telling people, even if you give somebody like a $5 Starbucks card, that is a wonderful gesture. You cannot replace their home. Unfortunately, we would love to do that. We would love to come together and give people all the support, right? Financially if we could. But we can only do what we can do and we have to honor that what we can give is enough and be okay with that.
What's been helping you? What have been the moments
Mm.
that you're like, okay, I feel better after that?
What's helped us is really talking as a family at dinner about what's important.
Okay, for families that are not used to talking about their feelings and
Mm.
things, what are some specific questions that you could give to the parents listening whose children are maybe shut down or maybe they're acting like nothing's happened because they
Mm.
don't, at the young ages, you just don't know how to process.
Mhm.
So, what are we asking our kids right now?
Well, in my household, I've been asking my kids, what's important to you? I mean, in terms of valuables, everything cannot be important. So we've been identifying like, okay, if we have to evacuate again, what would be the top 3 to 5 things? So it's interesting because we go around the dinner table going, I'd take my 9-year-old is saying he'd take his stuffy, and I would say I would take my purse, and my husband, everybody kind of goes around, and it's kind of a light topic, but it makes you think about what you value, what they value. So that's been interesting having those conversations. And we've been having conversations about impermanence, that everything's temporary and we can't get attached to too many things.
My therapist often reminds me that, if you can talk yourself through a situation and realize that you can be okay through that situation, it really can help anxiety go down. And so Mila, my
Yes.
daughter, she's 6, and at first she didn't know. Anytime my husband and I would say the word fire, she'd be like, our house is on fire. She just would hear that and think that. And so finally I said, okay, let's say our house burned down. What would be the thing that you would be most sad to lose? And she said, my soft blankie, which is like her baby blanket that she still sleeps with, And I said, okay, if we didn't have soft blankie, what could we do to make you feel better? She was like, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe get another soft blankie or a new stuffy or something like that. Can you find the soft blankie again that looks just like it? And I said, I could try.
Yeah.
Would that make you feel better even if we didn't find the same one, but I could try to find the same one? And she was like, yeah, that would make me feel better. I said, okay. So worst case scenario, we lose soft blankie. We're going to be okay.
But I love that you processed that with her. Like you walked her through it. So many parents don't want to do that right now. We want to just immediately say, it'll be fine. Let's just move on. But you're actually processing.
Well, and that's what I said. For the first 2 days that it was going on, I was like, baby girl, our house is fine. Look how far we are from the fires. Everything's fine. I kept saying, everything's going to be okay. Our house isn't going to burn down. Everything's going to be fine. And then I heard my therapist in my head when I catastrophize on real situations in my therapy sessions that don't even matter. And he was like, wait a minute, what's the root fear here? And I just knew I needed to process that with her. What are some, I would say, because your children, you've told me like they're very different in the way that they process. So for the kid who doesn't want to talk, you ask them questions and they don't want to answer. How do we love them the best way right now?
I think it's just saying, whenever you're ready, I'm here for you. We've been on these watch duty apps. We've been watching the TV. My 9-year-old is more empathic, so he feels a lot of what's going on in the world. So every 5 seconds, it was like, is the fire near us? I feel unsafe. I'm scared. And we started changing his rhetoric. We started start saying, I am safe. I am okay. Once he started reciting that mantra, he felt much better. Now, my 14-year-old didn't need to recite the mantra. I knew he was scared, but he wasn't verbalizing it. He was just kind of like quiet to himself in the room, and I would just check in on him. But I knew he was feeling certain emotions. But I just made sure to like get in bed with him and sit with him a little bit, just distract ourselves with other things just to, keep our minds off things.
I love that so much. I think that that's so important to really try as a parent, really try to be there for your kids. And for the people listening who maybe this came across their algorithm and they've never heard of you or heard your principles or anything, but they were meant to hear you speak to them if they were affected by these fires, if they lost their home, what would you tell them?
I would say that I'm so sorry, and that we don't know why things happen the way that they do. And the world is so unpredictable. And we are all trying to make sense of why things happen. And I want you to honor your grief, honor where you're at, and whatever you need to do it. Whatever's going to make you feel okay and just stable today, do that. And don't feel like you have to show up for everybody else. If you're not feeling well in your own head, mind, and body, whatever it may be, but, you definitely want to honor yourself and your feelings around this. And all feelings matter.
And honor if you don't have it in you to give.
Absolutely.
Like, I've spent years in Africa and India serving people. I know in in my body when I am at my breaking point. I have like literally nothing else to give.
Mhm.
And going into these fires, I was dealing with some really heavy emotional things that
Mhm.
when this hit, it was like my world exploded and I couldn't do any. I like knew I cannot volunteer for this one. Like I will donate as much money as I
Mhm.
can, but I cannot physically go and give
Mhm.
and smile at people, and like I will literally just make it worse. I will
Yeah.
cry for them and then they will be trying to console me, and like it's
Yeah.
just about me at that point.
Right.
And so, and just being okay with that, like for the people that have really gone through it, just give what you can, and be okay taking a few days off. Be okay not watching the news, and be okay, you know, checking in with people by reaching out to them and not necessarily physically showing up. Like that's okay too. It is okay.
Absolutely. I always tell people you have to look at the news as like a screen you put up, right? You take in what you need, but then you leave the mosquitoes out. Like you cannot absorb everything that the news is feeding you, because I started to notice that with us as we were tracking things and we were glued to the news, we were taking in too much fear that was coming in. So we had to find a way to go, okay, I need to take in the information that is useful for me, but then I cannot get caught up in this fear-based rhetoric that keeps going on, that I'm unsafe. And, because right now I'm safe. I feel safe. So I need to come back to that. And then I need to be there for my children, because as parents, we have to stay steady and grounded for our children. It's okay for our kids to see our emotions. That's actually healthy. I'm not saying don't show any emotion. It's that you have to remain a steady and calm force while the world around you is crumbling to some degree. So that's what we need to do. So before we go, I just want to stress, because I am a local, and the best ways that you can help are directly, like maybe not putting your money into the abyss, into a fund that you don't know where it's going. That might not be the best use of your resources.
Unfortunately, I don't think a lot of people understand that, when you donate to
Mhm.
organizations, and I'm not saying they're bad for it,
No.
they have their own bills to pay. But a lot of organizations will pay, like, oh, we're getting this influx of donations. We will send it out after we pay our salary, after
Mhm.
we pay off this late bill that we haven't been able to
Mhm.
afford, but now we're getting all these extra finances. I'm not saying that happens
Mhm.
everywhere. Hopefully, I would say majority of the organizations, it's just part of it's just part of it. It's just the way it works to run a nonprofit. Like I've worked in nonprofits, and
Mhm.
that is something that happens a lot. My mom Zelled me $100 and it said for the fire, and I just Zelled it right on to someone else,
Right.
And it's like that helps so much. Like these people they need specific things. They need to keep paying their
Mhm.
bills, even though their lives are destroyed. Cash is so, so, so important. So if you do know anyone who has been in a fire, LA has done such a good job of coming together and like bringing clothes to
Mhm.
donation centers. I'm so happy and honored at the people, the influencers and actors and people that really are using their platform. Like I've seen so many influencers raise 10, 15, $20,000 in just a few days and go buying things and donating it and everything. And that's so amazing. I'm so proud of our city for that. If you're outside of the city, please, if you know anyone, just Zell them. Or if you
Mhm.
know someone who lives here, they know at least 5 people who have been affected by this. Send money to that person. To me, as a local, echoing everything you're saying, please, 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 if you want to help, like it is just direct impact to send someone
Yeah.
who's been affected money directly.
Yeah, that's the most powerful thing, is direct impact. And also asking ahead of time before you go to the donation center, you need to see where they're at, because they may not need more of a certain item. Now they're actually in need of this item. So you might want to double check so that you're giving them actually what they need now at this point, because people's needs have changed in a week. So they may not need what they originally need anymore. So things are constantly evolving. So you just want to ask. And definitely direct impact is the best. Giving to someone that you know, or that person will get whatever it is to that person. I think that's really where you're utilizing your resources the best. And also, it's small acts. As I mentioned, it could be a Target gift card, a grocery gift card, carry them in your bag. If you see someone or hear of someone, that is something you can easily have on hand to give. And $20 right now is
A lot.
going a long way. It means a lot to somebody. And prayers are free. Good thoughts are free. Like, let's focus on that too. Helping each other in other ways, just thinking about somebody or checking in on somebody. Those are free. That's just you being a good humanitarian in the world. So all those things, giving someone a smile. You don't know what they're going through. Giving someone, a good thought in your head as you're passing by, like, I hope that person is okay. Those are all free. They're all readily available to anyone. So those are small things. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you found some comfort in this video, and we will definitely be talking more about processing grief and navigating challenging times in the next few episodes. Stay safe. Take care.